Well, is it possible that AI has gotten so good at generating images of people that not only do we have trouble telling the difference between real images and images generated by AI, but that we tend to pick the ones generated by AI more frequently as being real than real people? This person, for example, is not real. The image was generated by me about 24 hours ago. And here are others along with him that exist only on the screen. There's no such person as these. They look pretty realistic, do they not? So let's take a look at this study, which came out quite recently in Sage Journals. You can see Psychological Science, why AI faces are perceived as more real than human ones. How can that be? Well, here's the design of the study. First, 100 images were selected at random that were images of real people, half of them male, half of them female. Then, another 100 images were generated using StyleGAN 2, half of them male, half of them female. By the way, GAN in this case refers to generative adversarial network. It was an approach that was proposed and is frequently used back in about 2014. In fact, here's how that works. On the one hand, you've got real world data, which you can see in that image at the top left, and then you've got random noise that's being fed into an image generator there in the lower left. And those two are producing, some are real results and some are artificial results. And there's a discriminator that's trying to figure out which is which. And then the result is compared to the real result. Sometimes the discriminator gets it right. Sometimes the discriminator is wrong. And these results are fed back in to the generator. The generator tries to get smarter and smarter, or better and better, at producing images that trick the discriminator. And the discriminator is trying to get smarter and smarter and better at making a distinction between the two. Finally, the image generator starts producing results that the discriminator cannot tell the difference. So let's take a look at the results of the experiment in this case, because it has an interesting twist. So, of course, we know that there were 50% images were human and 50% were artificial. And the respondents had to tag them. Were they real people or were they generated by AI? And, tagging the humans at 52.2% was, not remarkable, but look at that. It seems, according to the study, that you and I are more likely to tag an AI-generated image as being a real human than a human image. How can that be? Well, let's take a look, for example, at the top 5 most frequently rated as real humans images from this study. Here they are, from left to right. So we have that person, the lady on the far left, was rated as being a real person more than any other person, more than any other image out of the 200 images in the study. And then number 2, then number 3, 4, and 5. So there they are, the top 5 most rated human. Now, were any of those actually generated by AI? In fact, 4 of the 5 were actually generated by AI. Only that gentleman in the 4th position was really a human being. Isn't that interesting? By the way, did you notice that image 2 and image 5 are quite similar in facial structure and in many other ways to each other? We'll get back to that topic a little bit later. But suffice to say that these respondents were not very good at guessing. Now, let's take a look at the top 5 images that the respondents were most likely to rate as being generated by artificial intelligence. Here they are, again from left to right. that young fellow there on the lower left as being the most frequently tagged as being, nope, that's not real, that's artificial intelligence. And then numbers 2 and 3, you can kind of see a little bit why 2 and 3 might have been tagged that way, right? There's something almost unreal about those images. And then number 4, pretty little girl, maybe people thought she's too pretty to be true. And then number 5. Anyway, these are the ones that were most rated as being, no, that's not real, that's artificial intelligence. Were any of them real? In fact, 4 out of 5 of those rated as not real were real people. So this study was recently written up with this funny conclusion by UCL. AI faces look more real than actual human faces. Well, I don't know if that's the conclusion that we can draw, but let's dig in, shall we, a little bit into why this might actually happen. So here is a scatter plot of the real faces and the AI-generated faces in the study. And you'll notice that the real faces have more, there's more diversity in the real faces. So, and by diversity, all of these were Caucasians in order to avoid any kind of bias or lack of understanding that might be driven by that. So they made them all Caucasian faces, but some were more those distinctive ones than others. And you can see those orange dots, which are the real faces, scatter more widely across this scatter plot, whereas the purple faces, which are the ones generated by AI, are more tightly clustered, and that's not by random chance. AI, as you recall, that StyleGAN2 is trying to trick the discriminator, and it's trying to hone in on a set of features that are kind of more normal, let's call it, less likely to be called out by the discriminator. So it clusters them more closely. So that might be one reason to explain why you and I are more likely to think that an image generated by AI is real than an actual human image. But the real funny result of this study is not only just that. The real funny result is that the more errors we make, the more confident we are about our opinions. So what you see here is a correlation. The horizontal line shows the mean confidence of the respondents. They rated their own confidence. How confident are you in your selections? And then the vertical line is the number of errors. And the more errors they made, the more confident they were that they were not making a mistake. Interesting, hey? So let's try this out and see what this might look like. Here's a site that you can play with online. I don't think this is using StyleGAN2 because I noticed some things about the images that it generates that aren't what I would expect from StyleGAN2. But anyway, you can see here the website is unrealperson.com. It's perfectly free. So let's hit this generate button and see what happens. Generate. All right. And, this is a pretty realistic face, but look at this little patch up here. This is why I don't think it's StyleGAN2. This is an artifact that's left over from the image generation process, and that's what they were trying to solve for when they created StyleGAN2, these artifacts that show up. Also, this thing that's going across here, and then it picks up at another side here is possible, but it's not probably too likely. So the face, though, is pretty realistic, right? It's just the artifacts that call attention. Let's try again. Well, pretty realistic, huh? Could be. It's possible. Let's try one more. Maybe, right? I mean, if you weren't on this website, would you say for sure that can't be a real person? Let's do one more. Wow, that's very realistic. That one you would believe, right? So that's that's the situation now with AI generating images. Now, by the way, let's just review some of the reasons. Why would we want to be doing this at all? So here are some of the legitimate use cases for this type of activity. First of all, we might do something like k-means segmentation, try to create customer segments, and then usually we put an image of a person next to that cluster to help the marketing team to try to visualize who they're speaking to. So for internal use in that setting, that could be good use for this. Sometimes we're doing a graphic design layout. We're going to get real people, but in the meantime, we need placeholders while we're doing the layout. Could be a good use. Maybe we're going to be telling a story about somebody, but we want to protect their privacy. So we're going to anonymize the data. It's a real person, but we need to anonymize it. And then we want to put in a placeholder picture. Could be a good use. Advertising. Maybe we don't want to pay for a stock photo of a random person. We might as well just generate our own random person and stick it in there. So these are some examples of legitimate use cases. Now, of course, when we talk about this fact that all of these images are all clustered tightly together, you can imagine that online and in the academic community, there's a lot of angst about, what are the psychological implications of the fact that we think people are human when they're more tightly clustered in this range? Are there implications in relation to bias and so forth and so on? All these are very valid questions or concerns. But the main point today is, I think it's fair to say that the technology has arrived. If we have so much trouble identifying AI-generated images that we think that the AI-generated images are more real than the human ones. Well, that's the report for this week. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon. Bye for now.